I would like to thank all the speakers for giving us such lovely presentation and also keeping to time. So I think we've got 5, maybe 10 minutes for questions and answers.
Yep. I think Bruno had the first question there.
Congratulations to Bruno as well, Kamal, because Kamal did the huge academic work in regarding to not only the omega, bypass or whatever. Now still, I mean, I'm not going to be the pain in the ass regarding the next. But we have to be a bit honest, sometimes, papers can be a bit conflicting because you're referring to your nice consensus statement of the modified delta. The year before, your self-advised to go for 1 meter 50, but you know what were your results of the consensus statement? You didn't mention that. What was the consensus? 35% of the consensus was going for 2 meters, 2018 publication. And there was also consensus that 1 meter 50 was not good, or not good enough. Is it true or not true?
Yes, absolutely true. No, you're right.
I mean,
you've asked the question.
Everybody of us is reading that.
So, Bruno, if I may answer the question that you asked me. So, you are absolutely right in pointing out that in the consensus statement of which I was the first author, the experts in the world rejected my suggested statement of 150 centimeter being the ideal limb length by consensus. So, we had a consensus of disagreement on that statement. Having said that, expert advice is only one of the things that I look at when I am looking at my practice. And we've heard so many different options with regards to so many aspects of our practices even today. And that is one reason I go out looking for variations in practice, not because I'm fond of finding out what people are doing, but it tells me 2 things. Because the best practice will lie within the variations of the practice that are there, because it will not come from some other planet. And also, within those variations, the most popular practice may not be the best practice. And that is why the science has to go first. So what I'm hoping I did today, which was different to the consensus statement, is I showed you some data that 150 centimeter is no inferior in our retrospective cohort study to 200 centimeters. So that is why I did.
100% right. But anyway, there are a lot of surgeons not present here, whatever, worldwide, reading those articles, and they assume probably when it's resulting from consensus meeting, it's not going to be your personal idea, it's going to be the idea of the consensus of all guys or girls who bypass or the bypass. That's still a bit embarrassing.
Yes,
only you need at least 75% agreement to say it's consensus. And this is, I think we never achieve this 75%. This is a problem.
I'll answer Bruno's point and then I'll give it to you, Chandra. Yeah. So, Bruno, I think one of the mistakes we could make with consensus statements, and I didn't invent them in bariatric surgery, as you very well know. Prior to me being born in the world of bariatric surgery, there were a dozen published already. The only problem we can have with them is to give them too much emphasis and put them before data. So that's where I would rest it. Chandra, you had a question.
Before you answer the next question, can I just have a show of hands? How many people in the audience do mini gastric bypass? Fair number.
How many don't do at all? Okay.
Can I just catch up with what Bruno said? Essentially true. If you just bring out a consensus statement of any nature, because that's what people read. In this time, there's thousands of material thrown at us, and you are reading something with a group of experts, associated if so, come out and say that it is 2 meters ideal. That sends the wrong message, wrong signal, and people start doing it. And thereby, this 75% or something like that consensus is a dangerous situation in this condition, especially when you've proven that 1.5 meters is ideal and 2 meters come out. How are you going to tackle the situation now?
See, one of the problems, I was not invited to this. No, because you see, I totally agree with Bruno. You have more white hair than me. I think after 30 years of doing bariatric surgery, do you really believe that there is a difference between 150 and 2 centimeters of small bowel, especially without considering the way it was measured? make an enormous, the variability with the measurement is enormous. So on so many patients, such a large number, the variability is so high. I think I appreciate the operation, that is easy operation, is reversible. I'm not a fanatic proponent, but I do some one anastomosis, but there is something unclear. If you do 150 for morbid obese and 200 for super obese, I don't believe it. You think that?
But Luigi, sorry, I spoke with an accent.
No,
You misunderstood me. I didn't say 150 for less than 50 BMI 50. No, but you misunderstood me. I'm saying one. One moment. Luigi, one moment. So, Luigi, first of all, with regards to the invitation for the consensus. No, I know you are. But Almino Ramos, who's not here, was deciding it, and it's got nothing to do with me. So the other point, with regards to limb length, I am not advocating any BMI criteria for it. I'm just doing 150 centimeters for all of them. Yes.
To the principle. If you are in a conference, everybody believes what he's doing is the best. Okay. But somebody said, presentation shows, I believe. But then we have a publication accepted in peer-reviewed journals. And then we believe that everything is true. Just with MGB, long-term result from Spain, Cabajo, I told him face to face, I don't believe in your publication. You make a prospective randomized study, 200 sleeves, 200 1Y, and 200 MGB. 5 years follow-up of 93.8%.
Yes, well, not true.
Nobody was dropped out. And after 5 years, can you achieve this? No.
I agree with you.
And then you have a 5 years BMI of 25 with a variation, and the variation of all the results is six. Is six. Yeah, this means that a lot of people are malnutrition.
Yeah, but Jean-Marc
is here. Jean-Marc is the. I mean, I
And,
believe
and then you're looking for the publication. If you have no ethical votum and the study was not registered, and we have experience, and Delphi conferences are a good way to find what we can agree.
Okay, Sandeep. and then Sandeep.
Just to answer. No, but you must remember historically how it began. In France, there had been a huge wide diffusion of this operation, and the mini bypass should be regularly 2-meter bypass. And many patients came back to their surgeon and saying I did not lose enough. So the surgeon had 1 meter. So, and suddenly we had nutritional deficiencies. That's the data we were on. So that's why we had to give danger signs saying, oh, don't do that. This operation is supposed to be simple, but if you do it too simple, and if you bypass more and more, you will have great problem. That's the only reason.
Sandeep.
No, I have a couple of observations and comments. One is about the limb length itself. So we have been doing 200 centimeters, and again, as a lot of my colleagues have said, we have not found, any different set of problems with that. I think the important thing is about the liver. I think most of us missed the point that recently I saw 2 experts showing complications of MGB in a cirrhotic liver. I mean, to me, that's criminal because you cannot do a malabsorptive procedure in a bad liver. I think we've been very, very sensitive about not doing MGBs in even a grade F3 or F4, like if you have a high fibroscan value, a high liver stiffness measurement, or a bad-looking liver. Okay, so we'll not do an MGB at all. I think that, to me, is an important point because if liver is bad, you are blaming the MGB for malabsorption and other things, while it's the liver which is responsible. Point number 2 is about the diabetes. We are, again, in this interim analysis of our own data, we are doing a randomized study between the RYGB and OAGB for diabetics. About 40 cases have been recruited on each arm, and about 1 year results show no difference. It's not superior as far as diabetic remission and weight loss is concerned. And at the number 3 point, which I heard Peter Small, very nice talk, but I think it's not a walk in the park. I think getting into the lesser SAC in OAGB is more difficult than in a standard RYGB, and the leaks are devastating. So I think OAGB, for all its simplicity, is still an operation which has complications which are probably more serious than RYGB. Thank you. These are my comments.
Shlok next. Professor Balapur. And then Rui.
I'm just going to go on that issue as well. Now we're talking about the limb length and so on and so forth. Nobody's actually mentioning the word adaptive gut adaptation. Do you think 5 years or 6 years, 150 or 200 is going to be the same weight loss? Let's not talk about weight loss. Let's also talk about the reactive hyperglycemia. You will find higher rates of reactive hyperglycemia in your NGP group as opposed to going wild group. And that would depend. And I'm very keen to see the experts in the room let us know if they find a higher proportion of reactive hyperglycemia with which we are all struggling at the moment, understanding why it happens in people who have 200 centimeters or who have 150 centimeters.
Rui. Then we can take his question.
I would like to say about the consensus that one of the reasons why we haven't got the consensus was because of the OAGB supporters were divided between the MGB technique and the OAGB technique from Carvalho. And they are doing much longer and longer biliopancreatic limbs. They are doing 3 meters, 3.5, and they don't accept the rule of 150 or even 2. Because nobody talked about the tailored approach. I am doing tailored approach. I do biliopancreatic limbs of 2 meters, usually, sometimes 250, sometimes 3 meters. Shitin has been with me this week, he has seen that. And sometimes 150, and sometimes 120. It depends on the patient. You need to understand the patient. Not only the BMI. The BMI is important. Of course, the super obese needs more power for the operation. And, but sometimes I operate ladies with 35, not metabolic, and I do 120, and it works good also. And am I afraid of malnutrition? No. My patients, they eat well. We are in Portugal, we eat a lot of good food, good proteins, fish, meat. We have a very good gastronomy indeed. Some of you know that. But that's not all the story. According to the countries, 2 meters is too much for India for sure, but not for Argentina. But also the metabolic, the age is very important also. 2 meters for a 65 years old patient is too much, but for 18, you will adapt much easily. So, and there is the wrong focus. We are trying to define what is the safety. 150, 2 meters, 180, that's wrong. With SADS, like Antonio, so they are measuring the final part. My protocol, according to Carvalho, before, he changed a little bit, but regularly 2 meters.
Why change?
Because he wants to be more aggressive and have even better outcomes. My protocol is 2 meters. If it is a super obese, more 50. If it is a diabetic, more 50. If it is an old patient, less 50. Below 40, less 50. Okay?
Does he mention about the way it is measured, the small bowel?
Yeah, and of course, and we need to measure all the bowel all the times. I measure all the time. Sometimes it's difficult, it's hard. We push, and it's heavy. We are in risk of tearing the bowel. In that case, there is another rule for me. That's what I was saying. We need to understand how much do we need down, for not having malnutrition. From it, 3 meters. With 3 meters, I never saw a patient in malnutrition. Like with SADS, they are doing the same. They have reached now, they began with 2 meters, went for 250, and now many cases are 3 meters. And they tailor a little bit. So I suppose we don't need a fixed length for the beginning of the bowel. We need a tailored rule, or at least a law for the last part of the bowel.
Probably, I think to sum it in one word, you could say one size does not fit all. Mr. Balapur has another question.
Ask the chair to actually. I just wanted the chair to actually ask this question to the audience. You can find out who actually measures the common limb. Who goes from ileocecal wall goes upwards? How many of us do that? Just 3 people.
3, 4. Measures the whole bowel length, roughly, basically. 4. Yes. Well, the question from Professor Small, do you do the same thing for Roux-en-Y then? Who measures the common limb for Roux-en-Y then? No one, so that is interesting. Why do that for MGB and not for Roux-en-Y?
So this distribution is the main issue.
This is an important observation that Peter you are doing, but the problem is that this is, I am pretty convinced that I haven't read this trial as yet, that if you do a mini gastric bypass with 200 from times, if you do a Roux-en-Y with 200 from times with the 75, 80 isolated knee, I think from my point of view, theoretically it should be the same. Theoretically.
This shows what it is. Have you looked at this more on the roll with the alimentary link to have a
But I think this is clear. To me, it is quite clear. So, but it is an important observation because theoretically you might get the malabsorption also on the wall.
I think that's where the proponents of Saji come in, who does a fixed limb 300 centimeters. Yes, yes, Maurizio. But
recently there was a presentation by Dr. Lee's group in IPSO APC, and they showed while measuring the whole limb, they had 2 perforations. So it's not without complications, you know. In bariatrics, you should do what is required. So you do more, you have more complications.
particularly, I think in the super obese group, when you are 65 BMI, when Professor Small was saying that in a 65 BMI, he was sweating to do a sleeve. Imagine you do a mini bypass and then you are trying to go upside down and go on the right side and measuring common limb. So it has its own risk.
I think we're going to end the session and break for coffee. How much time do we have, Sanjay?